I am Bo Weddle.
So, Bo, it's really great to have this opportunity just to talk to you and just find out more about your story because I know a little bit about your story, but I guess I'll just start off with the first question. What was your life like before you accepted Christ?
So I was a child when I accepted Christ. So I was about 9 years old. I
Okay.
think it was about 1990, maybe 1989. But so I was just a child, and I grew up in a good family. I have my mom and dad, and they work a lot, and it was normal childhood. We grew up on a Leanne says it wasn't a farm, but it was a farm front. So we had some property.
So you had some property, or what does that
So my
mean?
grandpa, my uncle, and
Uh
then my house, and we're spaced a couple hundred yards apart along the roadway.
huh. Okay.
And so we had like a handful of horses, handful of cows. We were in 4-H, so we had like some 4-H projects and those types of things. But we didn't actually, a little bit of hay, but we weren't like farming big production or anything like that. It was just so Leanne says it wasn't really a farm, but we were kind of out and but it was so I lived with my family on this farm front. And so we just grew up kind of the typical country life in
Where was this at? Where
in
did you?
Woodsfield,
Okay.
Woodsfield, Ohio. So just outside of Woodsfield, a few miles.
So, what were the circumstances that kind of brought you to make that decision as a child at 9 years old to accept Christ?
So to my recollection, and it could be far off, but as far as I know, so we went to church on holidays, and we always my parents always believed in God, but we didn't really go to church, and but we went on the holidays, and we went Christmas, Easter, and I would say we got our name on a roster at some point, like a guest card, and so this minister came to Woodsfield to the First Baptist Church, Marvin Robbins, and I I kind of feel like he started just calling people on the roster. I think the church had kind of shrunk,
Uh huh.
and he's just started tracking people down and knocking on doors.
Oh, really? So he
And
really
yeah,
an
so
outreach really that he
yeah,
did.
so he
Huh.
just started knocking on doors, and anybody that let him in, then he said, "Hey, you think your neighbor will let us in?" So I mean, that's how I kind of remember it. That may not be real accurate in my young brain, but so then, yeah, I mean, I just remember he saved us right there on our living room floor.
Oh, really? The whole
Yeah,
family
whole
then?
family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
So do you remember his conversation or just,
yeah. I mean,
just some of the
I
words
remember
he
just
used?
crying and just my mom crying
Wow.
and it's just what my family needed at the time
Yeah.
and so my dad worked a lot and my mom was home with us and she really did a lot there at the house and
So who was there? Your dad or your mom was there when he came, or who was
my
there for?
dad, my mom, and my older brother. So I
Oh,
have one
wow.
brother and he's 3 years older than me.
So all of you guys.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So we all got saved right there on the living room floor, and then we got baptized on Easter Sunday as a
Awesome.
family.
That's
And
really cool.
yeah, and it definitely. I mean, and the change was there in the family,
Yeah.
and so Royal Ambassadors through the Southern Baptist First Baptist Church, they have the Royal Ambassadors program for kids. My dad, we went to Dayton or Cincinnati. I can't remember if it was Dayton or Cincinnati, but to the conferences, and I got involved with the RA program.
Can you explain some of those? Because for some of us, we may not know what those two programs are
Yeah,
like. And
so the RA, the Royal Ambassadors, was the youth program of the time through the Southern Baptist.
okay.
It was just a youth group,
Uh huh.
and for all ages of kids. I forget the ages on it, and so we went to Dayton or Cincinnati. I don't remember which one. I feel like Dayton, but the reason I'm thinking Cincinnati is because Anthony Munoz was there,
Oh,
the
that's
offensive
awesome.
lineman for the
Yeah.
Cincinnati
Strong
Bengals.
Christian.
Yes. So he's there signing autographs. And so I remember that. My
Oh, that's.
dad went and we did the whole cars, the soapbox derby cars.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so dad was there and And that was a difference, a change for us, to be connected with the church and to be doing these types of things. And over the years, we didn't we still kind of came and went to church. My dad worked a lot.
Yeah,
Uh,
what did your dad do for a
my dad
living?
was a millwright, so he worked in the industrial plants,
Okay.
and so he would work long hours. He's also a welder, a timber cutter.
Oh wow. He
He's a
had a
jack
lot.
of all trades. Anything that needs done, he would do.
Yeah.
And so he was always busy, and yeah,
Well, I mean, it strikes me how, like that pastor just had that passion to reach out to people and how your family was greatly impacted by that. Do you have still contact with that pastor or do you,
no,
I'm
so he
just
he
curious.
moved back to Mississippi.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I always think if I go down there, I'll look him up. But
Yeah, that'd be
no, I
neat.
don't. I haven't had any contact with him. I assume he's still down in Mississippi where he was from,
Yeah.
and I assume he's still working in ministry. And
Yeah, and I liked what you're sharing too about the difference it made in your family because you as a family unit totally changed from kind of going to church on holidays and then going to being so involved and being a
yeah,
part
much
of
more
something.
frequently. Let's say with Dad's work schedule and my mom didn't drive, so
Okay.
it was a little bit tough still to get to some of the services and stuff. But yeah, anytime we could, we were involved with it, and it also made those connections in the church going forward. And so then all through high school, I pretty much was in and out of the church. But
Yeah. Just another question here. Just describe some of the valleys that you've had to walk through in life.
yeah, I mean, so as a young adult, and when I was in high school, I had multiple knee surgeries. I got injured playing football my sophomore year, and then my my junior year before season, and then I came back and played my senior year, but it just wasn't the same. And that was one of those times, a weird time frame anyway, for as a young man
Yeah.
and a teenager. And I was I was an athlete. That was it. I mean, that's what my family was. It's what, the not that we didn't get good grades or do decent in school, but my brother and I were athletes.
Uh huh.
We played football, we played baseball, we played basketball, and which when I got in high school, I ran track instead of playing baseball, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, so being 16 and watching all my friends playing the sport that I loved
Yeah.
and being left behind,
I'm sure.
I thought I didn't know where I belonged anymore.
Yeah.
And so that was really
Would you
tough.
would you say that that was kind of like your identity, being a sports guy, being
It
an
absolutely was.
athlete?
Yeah, I mean that was what I knew. That was what I loved, and so that was taken from me, and I was kind of lost. I see my friends; they're going to practice, they're going to normal thing, I see my friends playing my position, and life went
Yeah.
on for them,
Yeah.
but I'm stuck. I didn't even know. But again, that's what I was. And so now what am I? And so that was really tough for me, is because I didn't know what I was.
Did you have any deep conversations with God about that, or just kind of questioning, or?
I don't really necessarily think I did at
Uh huh.
that time. I don't think, probably at my point in faith still at that time, it wasn't really that developed that I didn't necessarily blame God for anything that happened or have any that faith to say what's going on here.
Sure.
I was probably just a bitter 16-year-old
Yeah.
that was just kind of stuck in the moment and couldn't see past myself.
Yeah. So sure you felt like you were doing well in your freshman year, and then probably leading up to your knee injury was doing well, and then that just cut that whole dynamic out, right?
Yes, I'll give my brother some props here. So my brother's the athlete of the family, but my brother was a 4-year letterman, outstanding at football, baseball. He was outstanding in basketball too. He didn't end up playing in high school, but he was just outstanding in everything he did. Most coordinated guy I know, and I'm not, but I try hard.
Yeah.
And so
You gave it all.
yeah, so I came in my freshman year, got my letter though in football. So I thought, okay, keeping up anyway. He started as a freshman, but I got my letter. I'm doing okay. Sophomore year, still kind of a loaded, no place for me to go, but I did play special teams, and
Uh-huh.
that's what I got hurt on. So,
Oh wow.
but it definitely, I was getting bigger, faster, stronger. I felt like I was still good things to come. I actually got to start the scrimmage because our starting two running backs and linebackers were hurt. So I got, as a sophomore, I got that to play with the varsity
Oh, cool.
and took my lumps, but it was encouraging.
Yeah.
There was some good positives that, yeah, I can play here. And, to not see that really play out, because then it was a big setback and step back.
So
So,
did you have to have surgery for your knee or?
yeah, so I had ACL reconstruction.
Oh, wow.
And so I had that in 1997, and then tried to come back for my junior year. Went through a lot of physical therapy the whole time. Tried to come back, got the passing league because I was a running back and linebacker. And I get hurt before even getting to season. So we were just still in summer practice or
Oh,
summer
wow.
passing league, 7-on-7. So I get hurt again, have to have another surgery. Same thing, ACL reconstruction. So this time I had to go to another specialist in Pittsburgh and had to do a different technique, use a different graft. And so then back to rehab, back to therapy. And then finally I made it back for my senior year. But by that time, I'd gained a bunch of weight and was slow and just couldn't move very well.
Yeah. Well, it's understandable. I mean, how long was the recovery process and the therapy that you had to go through?
So it was continuous from the way it worked out, because a normal ACL reconstruction for an athlete is going to be 9 months to a year. At that
Uh,
time, it's closer to a year. Modern medicine has cut it down to about 6 months is about the minimum, and then 9 months is okay window, and then a year is still the good window. And there's definitely been some athletes that's redefined those guidelines, but and did well. But at that time, it was a year, and so we just went straight through physical therapy. And then I got hurt while I was still finishing physical therapy and transitioning to football, and then right back into physical therapy again.
yeah. That's definitely a valley. Has there been other valleys with?
Yeah, so then with my wife and I, Leanne, we were, so to kind of jump forward, we were in our late 20s and we wanted to have kids, and we really had a hard time.
Oh, really?
And so we started through the processes of, giving this injection and that injection, and doing this and having a surgery to try to get things working, I guess. And yeah, it was a really trying time for us because we felt like we were faithful, and at this time we see ourselves as these strong Christians, and we want these kids, and it's just like, why, God,
Yeah.
why not us? We're good parents. I mean, we're good people, and of course you start looking around and you see what's in the world, and you're just like, God,
Why?
why
Why do other people have it so
and
easy to have kids, and you guys are here
yeah, and they're
struggling?
not taking care of them the way they should. And we that's all we want is kids. And it was a long process. So it was go through a year of different injections, different type of fertility type
Yeah.
injections, and it just nothing was seemingly working.
I don't think people realize how many people deal with that. There's a lot of couples that seem like that for some reason they go through that, and it's a hard subject to talk about, especially for those that, I don't know if that was your guys' case at one point, but for miscarriages and things like that to happen too for some people.
We didn't have any miscarriages, but we just couldn't, conceive. So, and it was really tough, and it started splitting us apart and coming in between us, and because it's frustration on both of our ends, and so that was really a really low point and challenged us.
Did it help you, or did you feel like it kind of pushed you? Did you feel like you were growing with God at that point, or was it just a kind of like a stalemate type thing?
Yeah, it went from, we felt like I think it more challenged us than anything, and honestly probably drove us a little bit to question God and what we were doing,
Yeah,
and question each other. So I think honestly it kind of wedged between us more than it growing at that time.
yeah. So how did it turn around for you?
So just like everybody says, you just got to relax. The thing that everybody hates to hear and everybody says to you when you're going through these tough times.
Yep.
You just have to relax, and
Yep.
God will take care of it. So we heard that a lot, and to the point of angriness.
Sure.
And we go in. It was our 5th wedding anniversary was coming up in May. We went to the doctor right before we left, and he was at the stage where he was talking about in vitro and different types of techniques they could use, and we said, no, I think we're just gonna stop where we're at, and we'll look into adoption, we'll look in other avenues, but we don't want to go past anything else than what we've done. And so we made that decision together, and we prayed about it. We went on our anniversary in Florida, and so we went on a trip to Florida, and while we're in Florida, we got a positive pregnancy test.
Awesome. Well, praise God.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
and it was, and it's like, all right, well, we just relaxed and forgot about it, and God took care of it. So
Yeah.
hands off.
I think sometimes, not every situation, but sometimes that speaks to, when we surrender things to God fully, just, and it's hard to get there.
It is.
But when we surrender, it's like, okay, we're ready,
Yeah, definitely. When you just have that work at it personality, and you just want to, whatever it is, you just want to do all you can and just keep pushing forward. And it's hard sometimes just to say, okay, God, I'm trusting you. I surrender. I'm not going to fight with you. I'm not going to wrestle with you anymore. It's in your hands, and be okay with it.
Yeah.
And so, but it was, once we did that, it was and so then.
And I know we'll talk about blessings, and I'm sure your kids are part of that, but just knowing that you have some tremendous kids and
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
they're growing. And
Yeah, it's Jordan and Corbin. They definitely blessings in our life and with everything. And then so that was Jordan, the oldest, that we were having trouble with. And then of course Corbin. It seems like once you have one, then it's
easier,
yeah, it becomes easier. And then Corbin. So having a boy and a girl, we're extremely blessed.
Yeah. Any other valleys?
Those are definitely the top two that stick out. We've had some other trials. Jordy had seizures when she was 2.
Now that you mention it, I remember praying for her because,
they life flighted her.
That was really scary, yeah.
It was. They life flighted her to Columbus. We didn't know what was going on. She woke up. I thought she had maybe like a cold or something. And Leanne was at the hospital with her dad, who was having a small procedure done. And so my parents came down. They went out to eat. I went to work, and call me hysteric that my daughter could be dying and they don't know what's going on. And the doctor wants to fly her to Columbus, to Children's right now. And of course I'm like, go, and so I call Leanne and get her and go to Columbus, fastest trip ever to Columbus, and driving. So they flew her, we drove. And
I'm sure that was a pit to your stomach.
Oh, it was. I mean, so here's this child that we have prayed for and just prayed and prayed for. And now 2 years old. She's 6 days before her 2nd birthday. And it's just like, God, what are you doing to it? I'm sorry, no, she's 14 days before her 2nd birthday.
That's okay.
And it's like, now, God, what are you doing to us? Are you going to take this child you just gave us? And so fly up there or drive up there. She flies up there, get up there, and all the tests, and she's sedated. And thankfully, praise God, it was febrile seizures. And they're typically not dangerous. The thing that was dangerous about hers was it was 15 minutes sustained.
Wow.
No signs of coming out of it. So usually these happen seconds to minutes, and then they come right out of them, and they're fine. Hers was 15 minutes with no signs of stopping. They gave her all kinds of sedation and diazepam, and which anti-convulsant, which finally brought her out of it.
Wow.
But
so that's what the objective of sedating her was, to try to get to stop.
Try to calm the nervous system. Mm-hmm. And so but then they then it goes the other realm where she's so sedated they can't assess her. So there's a couple hour window where, okay, what's she going to come out of this as? You just don't know because she's slow sleeping. You think she's going to be fine, but you just don't know because of sedated her so much. And she's had the seizure and then sedation. And so those couple hours, Pastor Mark drove up there, which was really appreciated. And
definitely.
Yeah. And so thankfully she came out of it. She was fine. Within after that post epileptic, they get a little bit drowsy afterwards, and then with all the sedation, once she came out of that, she was fine. And we had to carry a little syringe that we had to give her, and that was really trying because living where we live about 25 minutes from the closest hospital, and I thought we were going to have a baby monitor in her room until she was like 17
Yeah.
because it was you sleep with one eye open. You're just so worried because if we missed it and she didn't show any signs of coming out of it. And so it was very trying. And again, just that, like, God, you bless us with this little girl that we just prayed and prayed for. And now, what's going on? But it all turned out okay. and
Yeah.
and so now she's a healthy 9-year-old, and she had the next seizure. She did have another one, and she came out of it with the medicine that we had, the syringe. So administered it to her. She came out of it fine. And then the last one she had was she came out of it on her own, which was a huge sigh of relief because there was an end to it. We were just afraid that if we slept and she didn't come out of it, that she could seize for who knows, I mean, indefinitely.
Yeah.
And not be able to bring her out of it. So a lot of sleepless nights.
So that's stabilized now?
Yeah, so febrile seizures usually affect children 6 and under, and usually they grow out of it.
That's great.
Yes.
So what's cool, I know we're kind of getting into blessing too, but it was awesome to hear her share her, at the halftime devotions for Upward Basketball.
Yeah.
And for you guys to do that together. So that was I'm sure that was a proud dad moment there.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And that's definitely one of the mountaintop moments. These are the valleys, and that's the mountaintop is, number one, 2 years ago, Jordy was saved.
Yeah.
And I got to lead her.
That's awesome.
In that prayer. And
I'm sure that, did you reflect back on you accepting Christ and your family accepting Christ as you led her to Christ?
I was just so proud of her.
Yeah.
Because she's so good-hearted in general and just so loving. And so I was just proud of her at just such an early age and how much she understands. Because sometimes when I'm teaching her, she ends up teaching me. I mean, and it's just how she sees things and the perspective that she brings and the grown-up things it's almost the grown-up reassurances she gives us is sometimes it's God.
Yeah.
And to see that coming out in her and her accepting it and wanting to develop that. And again, with the upward, wanting to tell others, she has said, I don't know how many times, she wants to be a missionary. And and again, she's a little girl and I don't know what she's going to grow up to be. And I'm not going to put her in any kind of, box or anything, but I can see it. I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
So
wouldn't that be another chapter, whatever that unfolds, but I know she'll be taking Christ with her, and what an awesome chapter to her story and your guys' story as a family.
It is. And so, yeah, that's been definitely a mountaintop.
Yeah, what let's go ahead and explore that. What were some of the other mountaintops in your life?
So having our kids coming out of that, and then the clarity, mountaintop experience is going to college. So I come out of this deepest low, this deepest valley. I'm kind of confused about I'm not an athlete anymore. I didn't have too many options coming out of high school. My dad's a millwright, but millwright halls weren't really taking people then, and I don't know that I'm a millwright anyway, but it wasn't really an option. And then, which at that time he was working at Ormet Aluminum, which I thought that was going to be my path forward. That's where in Monroe County, that was a really good job. But they were coming off of a big strike, and they weren't hiring. So they were on a hiring freeze. So that wasn't an option. I had this knee surgeries, so really military options weren't really on the table either at that time.
Also, you were really thinking about joining the military if it wasn't your knee?
Well, I was just thinking I needed to go somewhere.
And so you just felt like all your options that you had were
Yeah,
being closed off,
yeah.
really,
So
huh?
I just didn't know where to go, and so my brother's at Alderson Broaddus, and he went to a couple other schools, and he went there, and he was gonna play baseball there, and my mom is like, why don't you just go to school with your brother? Just go. You're my mom, like all moms, always believed I was smart. But I couldn't tell you that. In high school, I didn't really show too many people that side of me. And so I did. I kind of late enrolled after graduation to
Uh,
Alderson Broaddus with my brother. Showed up on campus, and they said, "What do you want to do?" Well, I just come through two years of physical therapy, 3 years. And I said, "Oh, I kind of like physical therapy, I think." So they put me on a pre-physical therapy program, and then I go, so my sophomore year, junior year. So my sophomore year, I start making some friends. My freshman year, I didn't have very many friends. My brother was there, and we were just kind of the tag
kind
team.
of hang out together, yeah.
Yeah, my brother, my sophomore year, maybe like he graduated in December, I think, of my sophomore year. No, my junior year. He graduated in December of my junior year. But anyway, my sophomore year, I started branching out, and I ended up meeting these really good guys. There was the cross country team, but they were a bunch of outdoorsmen. They like to hunt, they like to fish, and that's stuff that I like to do. So I get in with them, and they invite me to Baptist campus ministry.
Yeah.
And so I didn't go then. I didn't go my sophomore year, but being around them kind of motivated me to get back into church and get back into the Bible. So when I came home for the summer, I started doing a lot more back in my home church at First Baptist Church. And then when I came back my junior year, I had a friend come. It was like the first Baptist campus ministry meeting. I had a friend say, "Hey, why don't you come over?" And so then I went to that one, and I met my wife. I met Leanne.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So that was at she went to Alderson Brothers?
Yes. So she
Okay.
came in. She was a freshman in my
Oh,
junior
wow.
year.
That's
And so
cool.
we met at Baptist campus ministry.
Yeah.
She says I don't remember, but I do remember.
That's
It's a
awesome.
constant argument in my house on
Yeah.
whether I remember this or not. But yeah, so I met Leanne, and that was definitely a mountaintop experience. And Leanne is a great woman and was a great girl, and I was surrounded by great Christian people at Alderson Broaddus that made more than anything showed me that they love to do all the same things that I did, and there was this life that I had still had this kind of perception that Christians had to be these straight laced, restrictive type of life.
Yeah.
And when I met these bunch of people, these friends at Baptist Campus Ministry, I was like, they're no different than me. They're having
Yeah.
a great time. And so that was, and then I just started going with them and encourage each other in the Bible, and
Absolutely.
really changed my life and
That's
my perspective.
interesting that BCM was a big thing. I mean, I'd been around BCM some, so that was kind of a big thing in West Virginia. Did you go to any of the retreats that they did and camps like they did Beach Week and
So we
stuff?
went to Beach Week
Okay.
my junior year,
Uh-huh.
Leanne's freshman year.
What year was that?
That was 2003.
Yeah.
2003, spring of 2003.
Yeah.
We went to Beach
So
Week.
you knew Rob Ely and others like that that kind of organized that.
The ones I remember were Jim Mikes from
Mm-hmm.
Williamstown,
Yeah.
and Holly somebody from, he was from up, I think he was at Fairmont State at the
Okay.
time. I can't remember his last name,
Yeah.
but those were the big organizers. But
No, that's a great ministry, and I know about it. I actually went to, we did some dramas at Alderson Broaddus. I remember that I touched the piano that Michael W. Smith donated.
yeah,
Alderson Broaddus. I mean, not that it was a big deal, but we were in that room where the choir, the I can't remember, the West Virginians, right?
yeah,
Would sing and practice. So
yeah, they have the chapel on the hill,
yeah.
and yeah, so the
Yeah,
West
we went there
Virginians.
for a junior high convention one time too, and for the American Baptist for junior high. But that, how did you get the courage, or did Leanne have the courage? Who asked the other person out? How'd that come about?
Well, I don't remember. So I guess I have to tell him that I don't remember. So I mean, I asked her out, but I don't remember exactly. It was a process. So I met her at BCM the first day of
Uh-huh.
Baptist Campus Ministry, and then also Leanne's really good friend was there. They were roommates, and she's also from Parkersburg and childhood friend. And they become like so that every time they would see my brother and I, they would come over and talk to us and those types of things. So they initiated that part at least of just
Being around.
always coming and saying hello and my birthday is in September, so getting me a birthday card and those types of things. So I would definitely say that she kind of initiated a lot more contact because my brother and I we were really quiet and we really just kind of did our own thing. Leanne laughs because we were just two
Kind of.
brothers and we were just kind of on our path and that was it. And
Yeah.
Leanne likes to say that she brought us out of our
Out
shell
of your
and
shell.
yeah, and so definitely Leanne was initiated a lot of those early days and keeping me motivated to go to chapel and Baptist campus ministry, and then later on, and then we started dating. But
Yeah. So, any other mountaintop experiences that you'd like to share or talk about?
I think that's the highest of highs anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
Some good
totally
ones.
understand.
There's been a lot of good things in my life. I've been really blessed. But
Well, yeah, I know you're definitely, blessed with, a tremendous family. I mean, you have an awesome family. I mean, you and Leanne both make a great couple, and you have some awesome kids.
yeah, I mean, definitely proud of the kids and proud of my wife, and yeah, just what we're trying to do. And
Well, I know you shared a little bit, but I'd like to go back to your childhood and, just share a little bit about like what your childhood was like. I mean, did you guys, how did you guys do financially, or what were some of the memories that you had as being a child growing up?
yeah, and so my dad worked a lot. My mom didn't drive. So my mom was home all the time. My dad was never home, but he was working, and
Yeah.
so and he worked
It
two,
wasn't
three.
because he didn't want to be
No,
there. It was
no,
just because he had to work a
no,
lot.
absolutely not. It
Yeah.
was work related, and so he was just. We had everything we needed, and, and so, but it was because of the work done. It wasn't, nothing was handed to my family. It was mostly because of my dad's work on the job and my mom's work at home. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what really, that's how things got paid and that's how things got done. My dad would have long layoffs because it was in the early 80s. Some of the industrial plants they weren't burning, like the steel mills were shutting down, the coal mines were shutting down, and those are the type of places my dad would work in, or they were coal powered, and so they kind of went into, and they were shrinking, and so it was really tough in the 80s. My family history is they are timber cutters, they are just farmers, workers. I mean, just general type of people that just don't go without work. And so my dad would take any job coming along. So we scrapped metal, which my dad's a welder, so he would have scrap laying around too. But he would scrap metal to make some money when he was laid off, or he would go take any welding job he could get. He actually started doing jobs that before that, but it's really dangerous. He reverses oil tanks, the holding tanks. So you take the top and then you make the top the bottom, and
Wow.
it's very dangerous because they'll still have oil in them and they're explosive. So you have to pipe in gas to keep them to make so they can't get oxygen.
Yeah.
Very dangerous process, but that was decent money. My dad's made a lot of money doing it, but we've begged him to stop doing it for several years.
Yeah.
So he would do those types of things, and but other than that, we had horses. So we loved horses. My family, my dad's dad, he had a big farm. My grandpa had a big farm about 10, 15 minutes from us.
Uh huh.
So he had a large farm, 50, 60 cattle,
Wow.
15 to 20 horses, did oats and grains and all of those things. So he was really farming, and he retired about the year I was born. So that's all I remember my grandpa doing. My
Just
dad,
farming, huh?
yeah, from my dad's dad. And so a lot of time down there, a lot of late nights with my dad and working on farm equipment and me hanging around tossing rocks, and there was a little stream through there, and
Oh, cool.
so we like to hunt, like to fish. Yeah, so it was. I had cousins. I had an older brother, had a neighbor boy that lived about a quarter mile away who would ride his bicycle out every day. Had a basketball hoop in the barn. And so
Oh,
it's where dreams are made, in the barn.
yeah.
You go up there, you have to shoot through the rafters sometimes, but yeah, call your shots.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had also had two cousins, athletic cousins, a brother, neighbors, lots of sports.
Now, did you and your brother get along and
Yeah,
have a good relationship?
yeah, we're something on some things we're night and day. I
Uh-huh.
was always an early bird, which it's I think life kind of calms you both ways, but I was always an early bird and he was always a night owl. So in college, being roommates wasn't probably not the best time to ask us if we got along.
Yeah.
But no, I get along with my brother
Either
really
you'd
well.
be waking up early, or he'd be waking you up at night.
Yes, exactly. So he's like, and he would watch, and he's not a quiet studier, so he studies with the TV on. Well, my bed's next to the TV,
Oh, no.
so lights on, TV's blaring, and he's studying. I'm trying to sleep because I got a 8 o'clock class, and he don't have a class till 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was not the best time to ask us. But other than that, I got to spend 1 year in football. My freshman year of high school, he was a senior.
Oh, that's cool.
And so my brother was my hero.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, he was a good athlete, and yeah, so I
That's
looked
really
up to him
cool.
all the way.
Yeah. So it sounds like you had some really good grandparents in your life too.
Yeah, so my grandparents, I had my mom's parents live really close to us, and they were really good. My grandma would call, and she'd call me every morning and say, "Do you want to ride to Woodsfield with me?" It was about 5-6 miles. And so I'd ride into Woodsfield in the summer. She'd drop me off at the basketball at the
Oh,
park
really?
to play basketball or the swimming pool.
Oh, that's cool.
I mean, we'd stay for hours. She'd sit there. She'd get her ice cream, and you used to have to go to town to get the gossip. Couldn't get on Facebook,
Yeah.
so she'd go there. She meets with some ladies. They would talk, catch up on the latest town news, and while we were playing basketball, and then she'd
Oh,
come
that's
back
cool.
and pick us up, and yeah, so it was a community effort to get us to the practices. My brother and I were, because we were 3 years apart, we were always just a little bit out of not on the same team.
Yeah.
And so took a whole community to get us to and from practice. My grandparents were a big part of that, and my uncle. So then later on, my uncle, my cousin, his son, it's my same age. I graduated with two of my first cousins
Oh, wow.
as well.
And you mentioned horses. I'm assuming that you really enjoyed riding horses and.
Yeah, so I learned how to ride one horse, and not really horses.
Yeah.
I had one old mare
Oh, really?
that was my mom's,
Uh-huh.
and you just put her on the path and you just sit on her, and she'd just keep picking you up. So yeah, so that was my experience of riding horses. We went in the parades, so I have pictures of me with my little chaps on and my hat, my cowboy hat, and things with my mom on this black horse Buffy. But yeah, so that's really what happened is I learned how to ride one horse, but not really be a horseman.
Well, it's kind of funny because I just assumed, because I know part of your story. Can we get into that part?
Yeah, we can go there.
Because it's fascinating. And I'd like to hear about your. Did the football come first? The
Yeah.
semi-pro football.
Yeah.
If you want to start there, let's start
Okay.
there and get into the bull riding too. Or,
All right, yeah. So while I was in college, pretty much the time I was meeting Leanne, so my sophomore year, going into my junior year, I really got into lifting weights, and so I was going through I was lifting like a bodybuilder, but I wasn't really gonna compete in bodybuilding. I was just lifting that way, and I was really serious about it. All protein. I wouldn't eat cake, no,
Yeah.
and which is funny now because I got the biggest sweet tooth ever, and I couldn't diet. I couldn't diet for anything now, so I don't want anything to do with it. So bring on the baked goods. But at the time, I was really strict on my dieting, and I would do these this really serious training protocol and program, and so that's when I met Leanne, and with that training, I started feeling pretty good, and I started playing some intramural football at Alderson Broadus, and I thought, I don't think I'm too bad. And so in the meantime, my cousin I graduated with, he was a quarterback. He starts playing semi-pro,
Okay, that's how you got.
at Belmont, over in West Virginia. So they had this West Virginia Crash team. And when we say semi-pro, I mean it's more of like a men's league. I don't want to make this more than what it was,
Sure.
but at the same time, it's a little bit of closure for me because now I'm 220 pounds and I feel healthy.
Yeah.
I still have a little bit of a bum knee. I tore my meniscus right after my senior year and I didn't have it. I didn't have it removed, so I still have this little catching knee. But overall, I feel really good. So I'm 220 pounds. I'm playing their murals, and I think I might be able to play football still. My cousin come home over the summer, and he says, "Hey, we'll come down. We need a fullback." So I go down, and I started playing for the West Virginia Crash, played fullback for a year with my cousin, and had a great time. And yeah, it went really well.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, it's cool because it gives you a chance to play something. You probably still feel like you had left in the tank as far as wanting to explore that more because you've been robbed your whole high school years there as far as the injuries kept with the knee injury.
I'm 41 and I still feel like that. I still feel like it. I mean, that's what I played softball this year on the church league softball, and that was the first time I played sports in 20 years, like really other than running or bull riding or these other sports that I played a team sport.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how it was going to go, and I got out there, kind of got warmed up, and I thought, all right, well, I mean, I'm not as bad as I thought I was, or I thought I would be. And
Well,
so then
I think you weren't the only one that felt that way. A lot of guys and really enjoyed that. I think.
Yeah,
it was a good thing.
It
to see
was.
happen.
So, and again, not like it was just like, oh, well, I still can play a little bit. It wasn't, I wasn't 20 out there, but I was, what you'd normally be.
Yeah, and I think it's sometimes we get too caught up in the skills or the how conditioned we are.
Oh, I took my lumps.
Yeah,
I took my lumps.
But it's really fun to play the game.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I told everybody, I felt like I was 16 out there running around, and it was some part of me again that I was robbed of.
Yeah.
That I just and I played competitive softball with my brother's team. My brother's a really good baseball player, and my dad. So I played on his competitive travel team, and I absolutely hated it. Part of it was because I couldn't run and I couldn't hit the ball, and I just wasn't any good at it. But I wasn't really healthy, and I think still in my mind I wasn't healthy at that time. Like I didn't feel healthy. I didn't feel like my knee was stable. I was still like in that mentality of injured mentality at that time. And then coming back this time, I was like, I have nothing to lose. I mean, and so I just felt like, and so when I was out there and just running around, I just felt like I was 16 again and just playing all out. I mean, just every play was like my last. And again, I took my lumps and things didn't always go great, but I thought it was, I really had fun.
Yeah.
And just being with a group of men that I got to know a lot better from church, it was just a great experience.
No, I think it's a great addition to what we're doing here at church.
Oh, yeah.
A great opportunity for guys to get a chance to spend time because everybody like your schedule, like my schedule, like everybody's schedule, it's kind of busy and just to have a dedicated time to get some guys together just to, just like you mentioned about college, getting in some Christian groups that you can be around some other guys and talk about Christ, talk about, your family with and just get that support and that encouragement from. And
yeah, it's the same thing with small groups. I mean, that's I haven't been in a small group for a while because I did have the running group and then just life's kind of taken me away from that. But that was the same thing as I showed up to practice and I was a late addition to the team. And I showed up to practice and I look around and I knew everybody kind of by facial recognition, but I couldn't tell you their names.
Yeah. And
so I probably knew a handful of people here. But there was 15 people that I knew across the way.
Yeah.
And now I know them all by name. And then next time I'm going to church, I'm seeking those people out because now I know them. And so now I'm going over and saying, hey, how's your day going? And so I think that's been a huge network, in a support system again.
Well, I think that's what makes the church, right? The church, when we come together and spend time with each other, it gives us opportunities to spur each other on, to encourage, to grow in our faith. And yeah, there's always that need for the biblical aspect, but there's also that fellowship aspect. And then also having some type of purpose. Why are we coming together? Sometimes that could be a sports ministry or sometimes that could be doing a project together and like, working on something like you guys worked on ramps for somebody recently.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the deacons. But let's go back just a little bit because I didn't. You got a chance to talk a little bit. You went from bodybuilding,
Bodybuilding,
then you went to semi-pro football,
football.
and then you decided to go. Was bull riding next, or was
Yeah,
that
it
the
was
try
yeah,
off?
everything else was too boring.
Well,
No,
that's what I'm thinking. Here's a guy who has a bad knee. He's already been beat up with all the different injuries he's had, and he decided, okay.
everybody in bull riding has injuries. I fit right in. I just had them different. I didn't get them riding bulls.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so I had to go back again. So a
Okay.
long time back. Grew up, I'm going to say around the farm to humor some people.
Yeah.
And so I grew up around the farm, grew up around horses, not necessarily a horseman. And I'm like 1990. I'm sitting there watching this Cheyenne Frontier Days documentary, maybe 91, right before the movie 8 Seconds comes out. And Cheyenne Frontier Days, daddy of them all. And it was a Lane Frost story, and it was the story of Cheyenne Frontier Days where Lane Frost was killed, but it was more of a documentary about Cheyenne Frontier Days and not necessarily like the movie, not necessarily about Lane Frost. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting there with my cousin on a snowy day, and we look at each other, and I said, I want to be a bull rider. And and so my best friend, Kevin, who lives a mile down the road, same thing. So we come in, and he's like, I want to be a bull rider. And so we go, start playing high school sports. I have my knee surgeries. So when I'm 17, sitting in study hall, Kevin comes in, and he says, hey, Weddle, I found a bull riding arena. And I say, you did? He's like, yeah, quit playing football, started rodeoing, started bull riding.
Just automatically just switched.
Just I'm done with it. This is where my life's going. And so he did. Well, I'm still on crutches at this time.
And you're already dating Leanne, or are you guys?
No.
married?
This is high school.
Okay, this is high school. Sorry. I apologize.
No. So this is high school. I'm recovering from my surgery.
Oh wow.
My best friend comes in and says, Weddle, I found the rodeo arena, and I found somebody that'll teach me how to ride. I'm quitting football. I'm done with it. I'm going bull riding, and that's what I'm going to do with my life. And I was like, all right, let's go. Well, I'm on crutches, and I still want to kind of finish this football thing. Yeah. And so fast forward, and I'm a junior in college, and so I'm a little bit late coming into rodeo because most kids come in their teens.
Yeah.
So I'm coming home, and I'm driving down the road. Truck full of cowboys pull up next to me, blowing their horn, looking over, and I'm driving down the river, down on Route 7 towards home. Roll down the window. Here's my best friend, bunch of cowboys with him. He says, hey, we're going to the rodeo. You want to go? So I was like, yeah. So I pulled over, got in the truck, went to a rodeo with him, got me behind the chutes. I'm like, yeah, I definitely want to do this. And so we practiced on a barrel with springs for a little while. Uh-huh. They took me up to Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, and I got on my first bull up there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't good. I mean, they took me into a safe environment.
Yeah.
It was a really big bull, but it was a tame bull kind of in the bucking world, in bucking bull world. And so I buck off and fall off, and I just love it. And so then I'm still like 210 pounds. I'm still in my bodybuilder body, post-football body.
Yeah.
And I think this got to go. And so I started training for bull riding.
Yeah, because I'm sure you want to maybe be not as bulky. You want to be more toned.
You want to be as light and thin as possible. You want to be that pound for pound wrestler. That's what you want to be. You want to have good balance. You don't need to be strong. You just need to have good body control and pound for pound strong. Uh-huh. And so I'm 5'10". Ideally, I would have been down like 165 pounds, but I can only get down to about 180, 185. And that was just kind of, and I had this mental threshold though, where I feel kind of sickly when I get down below there. So I like to stay like 180 and above. I feel healthy and strong. But when I mentally get below that, I feel real thin. And so I get down to that threshold. And then started rodeo. And so we started going all the time. Fast forward another couple years, my dad, 54 years old, he says, I want to be a bull rider too. And so my dad joins me on the road.
Wow, he's kind of adventurous too. 54 years
Oh
old?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. I have my family. I get it from my dad, and I get it from my grandfather, and I get it from all of those Weddles before me. My grandpa, he played softball with us till he was 76, I think, on the
Really?
slow pitch. He bowled with us till he was 84.
Wow.
Still today, my uncle Ray, he's still, he's my hunting buddy. He's the guy just out here. I'm sure he's running up and down some hill right now doing something. And my Aunt Mary just passed away last year. She played for the professional women's baseball
Wow.
league
Uh-huh.
in 1954. So
Oh, that's cool.
like the League of Their Own.
Yeah, League of Their Own, yeah.
Yeah, so she played. She was a pitcher in that league, shortstop.
Wow.
So I got this long family of just line of athletes.
Uh-huh.
And so back to the rodeo. And so my dad comes, and so we go. And we just went all over. It was mid-states and central states rodeos. We went to Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky. Those were most of the states we went to.
Wow, so you actually did travel around some with that.
It was the fair circuit. And
Okay.
so it was mostly county fairs
Uh-huh.
and varying degrees of professionalism along the way. Some of it was very pro level, and a lot of it was mid-level.
Yeah.
And low level, but it just depends on where you went.
So I have to ask, what was your longest time on a...
So the goal is to stay on for 8 seconds, and you get a score. And I didn't do that nearly enough to keep doing it.
But you were able to do it a few times.
I did it a few times.
I mean, I'd be like half a second.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you do something enough, and I really did. I loved it, and I was really. I felt so. I was living a childhood dream.
Yeah.
And it was that was how I viewed it. I mean, I was aware of it in the moment that I am doing something that I dreamed of doing. And I really felt that God was putting me there.
Yeah.
And it's one of those kind of not a tidy chapter in my life of what happened or why, because it went from like this greatest of joy, and then towards the end, it become a wedge between Leanne and I. It become a kind of a negative thing, and that still bothers me because I felt like at that time, even when it was driving these wedges, and again, we're getting ready to try to we want to have a family still.
Yeah.
And now I'm 28, I'm 29. I quit the day before I turned 30, and so we have this wedge, but I would pray and pray and pray. I felt really faithful during this time. And I would just pray and pray and pray. And every time I just felt like that's where I belonged. Like I was making some form of difference, that my bad bull riding in somewhere in Ohio was making some form of difference in something. And I don't have the closure of what that was or why it was.
Well, I think if you're living your faith out wherever God plants you, I think that, yeah, you can make a difference with those around you. And you may never know the impact you had. You know?
I know, and that's the thing, and just because now looking back at that time of my life and the strain it put on Leanne and I's marriage, and I mean just going broke to go do it, and leaving and just being gone all weekend, and during the week sometimes too, because these fair circuits a lot of times Tuesday, Thursday, I'd always be back to work, and I'd always try to get back for church and those types of things, but I was going. And I would try to practice anytime I could. I mean, I was just really into it.
Yeah. I also, I don't know the full thing, but I think sometimes, God knows our passions. And I think God was almost rewarding you in a way for being faithful to him all those years, and saying, hey, I know you were having a hard time in high school, but I'm letting you have this now. And maybe there was that time of closure where it was hard to say goodbye to it, but God was saying, through Leanne and through that tension that you're feeling, maybe it was time to reevaluate things.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was. And it was at the end. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what it took. I had to sit down and think, I'm 30 years old. If you're making it, you're gone.
But you're thinking about your dad, and he's doing it at 54.
Well, no, I only think about my dad now because I still have about 13 years for a comeback and still be ahead of where he was. So I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
that tough though.
maybe you could start at 50 and get
That's
a little
it.
head
That's right.
start.
I could get started here in about 10 more years and still be ahead of where he was. I don't know how
Yeah.
he did it though, because
So you went from that, and then when did you get into? You tried the triathlon, and then
yeah. So it came out of I've always been active, and that's the theme of my life. And we joke about having 10 hats. I also joke about I'm going to bring can't have a story about my life without mentioning Bo Jackson.
yeah.
So
Okay.
grew up loving sports.
So
of
you
course.
love Bo Jackson because you hear he's two sport athlete, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because my name's Bo. My real
Yeah.
name is Bo, just B-O. And so going into school, 1986, 87,
Sure.
everybody asks you, how do you spell your name? Bo. How do you spell it? B-O. And they're like, okay, it's okay, just B-O? Yeah. So but then kids pick up on this. They say, oh, B-O, that's body odor. And so they kind of laugh at me. And then Bo Jackson comes along.
And
Two-sport athlete, Bo Knows campaign. And then it's like, for a young kid that loves sports and with the name of Bo, it was a great time. But I tried to live that. I tried to live that Bo Knows campaign because I've tried to do all those sports that he did in the commercials.
Well, so he helped save your name.
He saved my name. He did save my name and just create that image that, after Bo Jackson, then it's kind of like, yeah, you look like you should be an athlete. Bo, yeah, that's a good athlete's name.
Yeah.
Yeah, because one of the greatest athletes ever was named Bo. So, yeah, and with the Bo Knows campaign, ad campaign. So,
Well, you mentioned the triathlon before, and talking about swimming, it seems like you've always had a determination about you that you're willing to put yourself out there, even though, like you said about swimming, you knew how to dog paddle, but you didn't know how to.
yeah, so I get out, and so it's this just never-ending quest of just energy that I have in sports, and just love it. I love pushing myself. I love just trying different things. Get out of bull riding, and I have this void in my life of what do I do now? And I have these what am I going to be when I grow up moments all the time. And so I get out and I think, what am I going to do now? Well, I didn't mention it, but I also had a abdominal hernia repair. I had a colon resection when I was 25. And so then I had a hernia. So then I still have a hernia in my stomach.
Oh, wow.
So my abs aren't really they're not tied
You
together.
mean you still have it now?
Yeah, they repaired it, so I have the mesh.
Okay.
And so it just still kind of pushes out and it's still a little bit uncomfortable. And so it hurt to lift at that time, and I couldn't push a lot. So my natural instinct was to go back to lifting, but I couldn't really do that because it was uncomfortable if I really started lifting and pushing around on weight. And at that time, I was still at 30. I was still too stubborn to back off my weights and listen to my body. And so I would just go try to load it up. And so I was just in this constant fight. It's like, well, that's not working. Well, I found out I could run. And so then and again, playing sports that have balls and those types of things, running is punishment. It's not what you love to do. But I really grew into it. And it wasn't, and so then I signed up for the half marathon in Parkersburg on a last minute thing. And I did that. And then I just that was my new thing, was running. And then I did the church running group here, the life group.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I did that for 5 years. Hopefully sometime I'll get back to that, especially with the track out here now. And so I did that, and then did several half marathons. I did a full marathon, and I started having a little bit of trouble with my knee again. So it's kind of slowed me down. And I thought I have to do something to mix it up, and that's where triathlon came in, so that
It's just funny. It's like my intuition would be like, "Hey, I'm just going to pull back altogether." You're like, I need to try something new. I'm going to try triathlon."
No, I just need to not run so much. So now I just need to swim and I need to bike. That was in my mind. So I go and I take up. So I have to learn to swim. So I can doggy paddle, but I can't breathe. I can't do any kind of stroke or anything like that. There's no recognizable stroke. I can't doggy paddle a half a mile for a triathlon. So I go in the pool, just this poor lifeguard, probably a high school swimmer, like this doing lifeguard duty. She's just watching me sputter and gag, and I'm like, no, I'm okay, don't worry. She's just like leaning up, leaning up.
She needs to save you.
Yeah, she's just waiting to save me every day. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Don't worry. I just can't swim. So And so then it did, and self-taught YouTube, no coaches, nothing of
Oh
that stuff.
wow.
And so just getting in the water, gagging myself, and trying to do my best to emulate it. And so I did. I've done a couple short distance triathlons, but just
No, that's. I think that again, that just speaks to your determination and the
uh,
fight that you have inside to kind of push yourself.
yeah. So hopefully sometime I'll get back to it. I still have some uncompleted triathlon goals. If I
Yeah,
can get my knee to cooperate and I can get some time, and I still have some triathlon I'd like to do. But
that's cool. Well, let me shift a little bit and ask you, what are some of the people that have influenced your life along the way? That
so in between, I haven't mentioned him yet, but Pastor Travis Smalley was the first Baptist church after Pastor Marvin. There was another one, and then Pastor Travis came in. Pastor Travis was a young man. He was probably in his early 30s, and he was really, really a motivational preacher. But he was a big influence in my life. He was the one that was it 20-year-old, 22-year-old, and he's in his 30s, I could relate to.
sure,
And he's the one that showed me that pastors are people.
not
That's
some kind of
no,
up
no,
person.
not
Yeah,
some
yeah,
kind of up on a pedestal, can't approach them, can't ask him questions, that know everything and have all the knowledge of God. He was that down to earth, come talk to me.
yeah.
Ask me whatever you want. I'm not going to laugh at you. I know you've been here for 15 years at this point, and I don't care if you ask me the basics. I'm not going to laugh at you. I'm not going to. And that was the first person I felt comfortable with that, where, yes, I should know this stuff, but I don't. And that's what I love about here as well, because I still don't claim to be a biblical scholar. I don't. And I feel really comfortable. If I have questions, I can ask people without being like, wow, you're a deacon, you should be leading this.
Yeah.
And but there's still questions and things that come up.
No, I think that's very important. We're all on our faith journey, and we're all growing. And like you're sharing, it's about growth. It's not about me knowing an answer and you not knowing, or sometimes even us pastors don't know all the answers either. So
Yeah.
kind of having that stance that we're all trying to help each other grow and learn and experience that. So yeah, I think that sounds really cool, and it sounds like that pastor came at the right time in your life to kind of
Perfect
be
time
there.
with the ages and just where I was at spiritually, and really getting into it and really wanting to take that next step in my faith, and more, I don't want to call it leadership at that time, but I'm in my early 20s, and so now there's the teens behind me. And so these teens are kind of looking up to me as
Yeah,
I'm coming back in from college.
sure.
And like I said, here I am. I'm this big muscle bound guy, and these teens they have that, like, I'm close enough in age with them, so I'm that bridge between the pastor and the
Absolutely.
youth. And I want to be what they want to see. I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
I wanted to be that model for them that they could look up to, and
So
not.
did you help out with the youth group and stuff there?
So
Or?
I did a couple little retreats.
Oh, cool.
So over at Seneca Lake in
Uh-huh.
Ohio, they have a retreat grounds there, and so I took a group there,
Well, that's awesome.
and yeah, and so I just did that one year, like, and that was that same time
Uh-huh.
frame. Because then after that, I came back and I started actually getting involved with Union Valley Baptist with Leanne and
Sure.
over in Parkersburg,
Yeah.
and of course Marsha Lindenmuth and
Mm-hmm.
Brian, and
Yeah.
and so we were all over there doing things with the youth and different.
Also, you helped out with the youth at Union Valley too, then. Huh?
Yeah, more, I guess it would be more children's
Yeah.
ministry at that time, which was Leanne's. Leanne was good with children.
Yeah.
Still is good.
So she brought you along.
Yeah, so I was a helper. Yeah, so no, so Pastor Travis was one of them, and then all of my friends at Alderson Broadus. I mean, like I said, they changed my mind at that same point of time, that this is not a rigid faith. This is not a rigid bunch of people that are judgmental,
Yeah.
and these are fun-loving guys that just love the Lord.
I think that's such an important thing for all of us to realize that even even Jesus with his disciples, that he was real, obtainable.
Hmm.
I think Jesus, in the way he approached things was down to earth, and and really approachable, like you're saying, and having a good time.
Yeah.
That he really enjoyed being with the people, and I think that that's what we need more of in our faith, in our walk, is people around us that we can grow with and
Right.
challenge us at times too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anybody else, as far as your friends that always brought us? Or?
Yeah, I mean, so mostly that was for that time period. I mean, that was the biggest influences in my life. One other person I will mention is my parents' neighbor, Dennis,
Okay.
and the 180 that his life turned.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I knew him as a kid,
Uh huh.
and then I knew him as a teenager, and then I knew him in my 20s. And the 180 that his life, how he turned for God's and just went full bore at it, that showed me the power of God,
Yeah.
of
That's
how
awesome.
he could go. And I'm not saying that Dennis was a bad man before that, but he just went full headstrong for God and just, world, get over here.
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
going this way. I'm dropping my stuff and I'm following Jesus.
Yeah.
And so that was seeing that at the same time. That was,
So he was a little bit older than you, or how old?
yeah.
Much
So
older?
Dennis is more like my uncle's age. So he's in between my parents
Okay.
and my uncle. And there's about a 10-year
So
difference.
that's interesting. Just like you were saying about you were an influence for teenagers, he was somebody in your life that you looked at.
Yeah, he's
That
probably
was
like
a
my
little,
age now. Like
yeah,
he had his kids, and he was, and like I said, from my perspective, and he may disagree, but to me, it was just like going one way, and Jesus comes along, and it's like, I'm leaving that behind, and I'm going this way.
yeah. If somebody wanted to take a few things from your life, what would be some of the things that you'd want people to learn or know about you or take away from your life?
That's a deep one.
Yeah.
That's a deep one. Um,
Or what would you want people to say about you?
well, I've kind of talked about this at some of the deacon meetings that I want to be known that I love people, and even though, as Leanne says, my resting face is a scowl, like Bill Cowher from the Steelers. I got this intense look on my face. She always thinks I'm mad, but I am. I love people,
Yeah.
and I want people around me. I want them to know that I am approachable, and that I am here. If they need me, and I mean, I think that's the. I mean, obviously, I want to be, known as a faithful follower of Christ. I want to be a good father. I want to be a good husband. I mean, those are I think we all strive for those things.
Yeah.
But then just outside of that, just thinking off,
Well, can I
about.
stop you for a second? Because I think those are things that are really the most important things. Like you said, that as far as a calling of God, sometimes we get caught up in big things.
Yeah.
But, what you just said there, being a husband, being a father, if there's no higher calling than those two things, that those are two major things that,
No, and again, and I hate to gloss over them, but I guess those are just kind of assumptions in my mind at this
yeah,
point, that those are the number one things I want to be. I want to be a good husband. I want to be a good
no,
father.
that's awesome.
And those are and following Christ is going to let me do that. It's going to lead me down that path. But then with the people around me that I'm not, I want them to also, and I guess one of the things that I talk about, and I talked about when Jordy helped me at Upwards. So I got my intense scowl on my face. It's okay to have intensity. Intensity is not bad.
Yeah,
Going after things and seeing things you want to do,
yeah,
and going and putting effort into it
yeah,
is not bad. But be careful. Make sure that whatever hat you put on today, that Christ is at the center. That's your mission. I always think with the church, loving and leading people into life-changing relationship with Jesus.
yes,
And so everything under this church, we expect to fall under that mission.
yep,
So set yourself a mission in life, which is to be a follower of Jesus. And then any hat you put on, whether it's triathlon, bull riding, make sure it supports that mission. And so let people see that consistency. no matter what hat you put on, you're still true to your number one mission.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that statement. And, I think about, you do carry an intensity about you, but I could definitely see by being a part of the deacons and just getting to know you more, the heart that you have for people. And I think it really resonates. So even if you do think you have a scowl on your face,
That's what I'm
I think
told.
if you're around you enough, you can see that love of Christ ooze out of you. And
Yeah. Well, thank you. And I mean, and that's what I am. Sometimes I am intense and just laser focused on things, and I don't mean to blow people off.
well, no, I
But
mean, I think,
I just get really laser focused, which
yeah.
comes out as intensity. And
Well, I think we all have our different skill sets, different ways that we approach things, and I think that's what makes us the body of Christ unique. And I think when we can use those gifts, talents, spiritual gifts, it really does awesome things. So I want to thank you both for coming in and just sitting down and having a conversation like this, and
yeah,
thank you
no,
for taking the time.
no, thank you for having me, and thanks for the church. This church has meant a lot to me, and it's really given me an opportunity to grow, and honestly put me in positions that I thought were bigger than me at the time, and to give me room to spiritually grow into them over the last several years, and being supportive of that, and some of the challenges that's come along the way with some of those things. And so it's really been in learning from you and Pastor Adam and Pastor Mark. And I'm gonna shout out a few other people here because I
Sure.
didn't mention them earlier because I
No,
was
that's all
talking
right.
more about historical, but
Yeah.
Ron Anderson, Rex
Tremendous.
Nicholson.
Yeah.
I mean,
Rex.
these guys have really shown me what I want to be.
Yeah.
Again, struggling with what I want to be when I grow up. Ron Anderson, Rex Nicholson, just really good, faithful guys, and taught me a lot. Just behavior. Jeff Gilbert's another one.
Yeah.
Roger Heft. All right, I'm gonna leave people out.
Well,
So that's it.
well, like you said about Jeff Gilbert and Roger Heft, those are guys that were on the softball team.
Hmm.
Guys that you just continue to see their faithfulness, their consistency. Not what you'd say flashy people, down to earth, but love Jesus, love their families.
Again, just what you want to be. It's not about them in
Yeah.
any situation, but you can definitely see Christ in every situation.
Yeah. Well, I see Christ in you both, so
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.